areas in Southwest Florida with the co-op that needed more people. You know, we made sure we got Duke Energy on Pine Island to restore that. We made sure we had FPL helping on some of the other ones. And so they were really able to work, and the restoration with the co-op was able to be moved up by like 2 weeks for what they thought it was going to be. Maybe actually now they didn't think they'd even have it all done in a lot of those places. And so that was really an urgency, and we were happy to be able to do it. We also understood the need to be able to have just core infrastructure working. And the two biggest things that we had to deal with were the Pine Island Bridge and then the Sanibel Causeway. We were looking at potentially doing barges and boats and all this other stuff, you know, but at the end of the day, people do need to have ground transportation, and that made us be able to get stuff done better if you could do that. But a lot of people didn't think that would be able to be done for a long time. So we went through red tape, and we said, we'll help. Those are actually not state bridges, but we had our FDOT out there, and so we were able to take on the task of restoring the Pine Island Bridge. A lot of people thought that would take a long time. We thought we could do it in 7 days. Turned out did it in 3 days, and then got people back on. The morning after the storm, people saw how Sanibel had breaks in 3 different places, and that's a much longer bridge, a much longer causeway than what you had in Pine Island. And so there's a lot of people that thought that Sanibel would be out of commission for 6 months. And we looked at it, and we understood that that was something that we wanted to avoid. So we worked to see what the options were there. And again, getting the ground on there is so much better. We were flying in electrical workers on Chinook helicopters, barging, but that's not even close to enough people that you need. And then, of course, the residents, not easy to just be boating back and forth. They need their cars. They need to be able to get on there. So we worked with FDOT to develop a plan and said, okay, we'll fix this. And they thought, I said, be ambitious. And so, like, all right, we think we could do it by the end of October, which honestly would have been pretty good. Well, we were happy to say that on Wednesday of this week, 3 weeks after the storm had ripped it up in 3 different places, the Sanibel Causeway was open for the residents of Lee County again after just 3 weeks. So that's and we actually did the previous week. It wasn't really fully ready, but they were able to patch it enough to get like hundreds and hundreds of trucks across. So they've been working on restoring the power even before the causeway was fully open, because we didn't want to just sit there for a week and not get any additional stuff done. So they did a very, very hodgepodge patch a week ago, massive assembly of trucks, and then immediately went back to work again, and then, of course, to be able to open there. So those are great temporary solutions. Obviously, that's going to be a permanent fix. That'll take some time, but we didn't want to just have people out of commission before then. So that's really important, and I think Pine Island is going to bounce back much quicker because they have that bridge, and I think the same thing in Sanibel. There's a lot of damage in Sanibel, a lot of debris, a lot of power, uprooting of the power stuff. So it needs TLC, but they're doing it. I mean, they're making a lot of progress. We've also worked really hard through Florida's Department of Education to make sure the kids could be back in school as rapidly as possible. And that's something that has required the work of a lot of folks, the teachers, the administrators in the school systems, particularly in Lee, Collier, Charlotte, Southern Sarasota, and then some of our interior counties like Hardee and DeSoto. They worked really hard. Some of these faculty members had really big damage to their homes. Some of the teachers were displaced. We were in Fort Myers yesterday meeting with some of them, and so people had to really work hard to do that. And so the schools are back. I was just in Lee County, and you have Sanibel Elementary at a different school now on the mainland, and so they're really working these issues. But, you know, we saw this with COVID. You don't lock kids out of school. You need to get the kids in school. We did that during COVID, and we're doing it now. And we also were able to help. So the First Lady of Florida, my wife, she's really spearheaded this. she spearheaded this Florida Disaster Fund, a relief fund, FloridaDisasterFund.org. People have given online, and other people have given a lot. So she's now raised over $50 million for that. And so we were in Lee County yesterday, and I was able to, on her behalf, make an award to some of the local school districts' charitable arms in the heavily affected counties, including Charlotte. And we did $2 million across a few school districts to help with teachers who have been displaced or who need assistance in the aftermath of the hurricane. And so these are going to be things where maybe they need help with a deductible, maybe they need help with a repair, maybe they need transportation, maybe they lost their vehicle. You know, it used to be in these storms, you lose your vehicle, you get a check from the insurance company, you just go to the car dealer, buy a new car, no big deal. Well, it's a lot harder to find cars now because of the supply chain and all these other problems. And I know they've worked to move more cars in Southwest Florida, but the bottom line is there's a whole variety of needs. So we're able to do $2 million for those, for the folks in the education system. And then previously we did $2 million to the charitable arms of the Florida Sheriff's Association, PBA, Fraternal Order Police, and Professional Firefighters Association to help first responders who have issues that they need help with. And, you know, you saw some of these guys were out there effectuating rescue missions for other people, and they lost their entire home, and yet they're out doing their job. So sometimes people forget, just because you see them in a uniform, you think it's all peaches and cream, like in their private home or whatever with everything. And there was a lot of damage done. So we were able to do $2 million across those entities, which is really, really good. And then the First Lady yesterday was able to do, she did a lot, definitely over $1 million, maybe more, but they partnered with Home Depot, and basically we have these nonprofit groups, these charitable groups, and we've seen it here in Charlotte with Operation Rubicon. They will go and they will fix your home. They help a lot of elderly, especially, get debris off their property. If you had a flood, they can gut the drywall, and they can get you in good shape. You need repairs, they'll come in, fix shingles on your roof, a whole 9 yards. Well, Home Depot agreed to sell. So we're giving, Casey's given the money to the groups who are helping with the home rebuilding, but then they're able to get all the supplies from Home Depot at cost. So they're basically giving it. And so that'll make a big difference. And, you know, the thing is there's some total losses for sure, but there's also just a lot of, like, maybe more modest losses. But people need help with that, and the thing is, you know, there's only so many people that are out there doing the work and all this stuff, so these groups can come in and really help folks, and I think that that's something that's going to be very good. We've also activated the emergency bridge loan program that the state of Florida has, and we are amending the rules of that to allow sole proprietors of businesses, and we wanted to do that because, you know, we have charter boat captains who are losing income as a result of what's happened, not just with the interruption in tourism and all that. You know, this churned up a lot of stuff in this water. You know, you had debris in the water, all kinds of stuff, and so that's going to take some time to heal. So we went and we did that. And the emergency bridge loan program, it's a zero interest loan for businesses. And if you think about with how high inflation and interest rates are now, it's a really, really good deal to be able to have. And then the state is very flexible on repay because we understand that that's a difficult thing. We were talking about some folks about how they lost the home, but then they may have to do the property taxes. And so I did an executive order to postpone the payment of property taxes for people that suffered either a total or significant loss with their property. And what we're going to end up doing is I've already announced that we're going to do a special legislative session before the end of the year, and I cannot forgive the taxes by executive order, but what we can do is have the legislature come in and provide rebates for people who had a total loss or had really significant loss to their home on their taxes. I mean, when you're trying to put your life back together, you know, you don't need to be worrying about ponying up more money for taxes. And so we're going to work to get that done, and I think we will. But we also understood that as people are filing insurance claims and as they're trying to repair their properties, you know, we have elderly, for example, on fixed income. they file a claim and maybe they have $50,000 in damage, but maybe they need a deductible that they can't afford right now to be able to access that. So we wanted to be able to help people with their deductibles. And so I've been working with our state agencies, with the Florida Housing Agency, and I'm happy to be able to say today that we are going to award $5 million to local housing partners to help Floridians pay insurance deductibles following Hurricane Ian. So this is awarded through the State Housing Initiatives Partnership, the SHIP program. The $5 million, because we budgeted for disaster, was already set aside for a disaster. And so we're basically doing what we had planned for and utilizing it. So these funds are going to assist individuals, families, and particularly seniors with low to moderate incomes in the 6 most impacted counties: Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto, Hardy, Lee, Sarasota. I would imagine, that the bulk of this will be in Lee, in Charlotte, southern Sarasota, and then probably parts of DeSoto and Hardy. But at the end of the day, we understand there's a lot of challenges here. We understand that those deductibles can be difficult to meet, and we want to be able to help. And so folks can stand by, and you will be getting information about that very soon. We're also working on other things that we're able to deploy in the area to help folks as much as we can. So I want to thank the folks at the Housing Finance Corp for snapping into action. We saw a need and we want to meet it, and we're going to marshal the resources that we have available to be able to do that. We also, when we do the special legislative session, this $5 million, if this is something that goes quickly, that's something that we could do additional funding for this. We can do funding for some other things. And so we're going to be looking at ways to be able to make a difference in that legislative session for folks who went through Hurricane Ian, apart from simply rebating their taxes. And so stay tuned for that. Well, I'm happy to be joined here by both Secretary Eagle as well as Trey Price, who's the Executive Director of Florida Housing Finance Corp. So Trey's going to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Governor.
Yep.
Thank you so much.